Welcome to the course on ubiquitous computing. Today, we'll be starting with the sixth unit of ubiquitous computing that's based upon ubiquitous communication and management. In this ubiquitous communication and management, we'll be studying audio network, data network, wireless data network, and other points. Now let me start with the first point with this, and that's a audio networks. Basically, audio networks were the first types of the pervasive communication networks. There are two basic types of the networks, audio networks. The first one is the audio unicast network that's based upon PSTN, and the second one which is based upon or second one is audio broadcast, that is a radio network. Mainly two broad categories. The first one is unicast network and the second one is a broadcast network. Unicast example is PSTN and broadcast is a radio. So PSTN voice network, will start with that. Networks based upon a public switched telephone network are designed to support voice communication. A telephone. This originally used analog transmission, but this has been replaced by digital transmission in the core network as this is a more cost effective. However, the age of network that connects to the homes and businesses, the local loops still remains analog in most regions. Many workplaces today still use a separate networks for voice and data, although there is a progression towards a combined voice, data and audio video networks. Computer systems at the work tend to connect to the separate local area network and then use a router to connect to the external network managed by the internet service provider. The first PSTN used circuit switched to interlink the different network links to form an end-to-end connections. Here network links were used exclusively by pairs of callers when they are online. PSTNs were designed to be very resilient. The circuit switching used in the telecoms typically uses a hierarchy of about 5 levels of switching of pieces that handles particular number ranges. A call made from one network to the another telephone network in a different range is passed of the 3 switching stations until a higher level switch is found that can switch between the number ranges and associated phones. In some cases, switching of pieces on the same level may also cross the link to prevent the need to pass the calls off to a higher level switching and to provide greater resilience through alternate paths. Unlike packet switched networks, circuit switched networks were originally designed to first set up a dedicated circuit of links between switching offices during the call initiation, starting when the first number is dialed. Means we can take the example of telephone, wired telephone today we are using. Whenever we dial some number, so first of all, it fixes a path from source to the destination. That's by using a circuit switching, and then only it initiate a dialogue. That's not happening with a packet switched kind of the network. It is then used exclusively between the two parties for a duration of call. Means once a source to the destination link is established, that's by using circuit switched network, and that will be continued till the call duration, allowing multiple data streams to be interleaved enables one application to transmit the data during the time another one has paused. Later, with the advent of digital telecoms, multiple voice packets could also be multiplexed over the shared link. So, now in this audio network, we'll talk about intelligent networks and IP multimedia system. The earlier example which we have seen is a PSTN where circuit switching was a main component. Now we'll be talking about intelligent networks. They are IP based. The intelligent networks or intelligent network model standardized by ITU that enables telcos to offer new value added and customized voice services such as toll free calls. This supports independent component based services in general purpose computer nodes rather in special switching nodes. This enables a service provider to drive new services rather than network providers and allows them to use these to form flexible overlay networks. Active development in a new intelligent networks, that is IN services, has declined to recent years, although there are still many systems across the world which uses this technology. The emphasis is now more on development of telecom services and APIs rather than on developing new telecom network protocols. Although there seems to be a clear move to the IP based networks in the shorter term, hybrid intelligent networks and internet service architectures for mobile users are being proposed, such as IP multimedia subsystems, that is called as IMS. IMS was originally developed for 3G wireless networks, but wireless LAN and a fixed network support has also been added. Users access IMS using IP. A key challenge is application layer control protocol for controlling voice and video sessions, multimedia conferences, messaging, and presence over IP. This type of the multiple media transmission control can be performed using the IETF, Internet Engineering Task Force, SIF Session Initiation Protocol, which seems to have suppressed ITU's earlier H323 protocol. SIP can use three different types of the MCUs: full mesh, mixer, and multicast. In a full mesh, every participant builds a signaling path with every other participant and sends an individual copy of media stream to the others, and this only scales to very small groups. Next one is a ADLS broadband. ADLS stands for Asynchronous Digital Subscriber Line. Transmission technology can be used to increase the transmission capability over the existing physical access network. It does this by exploiting the fact that audio telephony signals requires only about 3 kHz bandwidth, but the typical line can transmit usable signals up to approximately 1 MHz. High frequency signals, however, can be attenuated and are subject to more electrical interference. A signal to noise ratio for transmission is more dependent on distance. However, digital signal processing can be used to support signal modulation, commonly based upon discrete multitone, that is called as DMT, an international standard, and a carrierless amplitude modulation phase modulation, that is GAP, to encode signals for improved transmission and then to recover the original signals. Next one is a wireless telecom networks. Basically, wireless telecom networks to support access anywhere for mobile or cell phone users. Wide area wireless telecoms networks that have been established. And the good examples of this one is a GSM and CDMA kind of the technologies. Next point in the same line is audio broadcast networks. The earlier example which we have seen is based upon unicast. This one is based upon a broadcast, and I earlier told the best example of broadcast is a radio entertainment. It supports one sender to many receivers. It is more ubiquitous than video as it supports to multimodal interface that allows human to listen to the music and voice while engaged in many everyday physical world activities that required visual concentration. Example, driving a vehicle. A radio and TV receivers, unlike wireless data networks, are inherently designed to handle and tune into or receive and wide spectrum of radio frequency broadcasts on multiple channels. Digital radio has been introduced as a replacement for analog radio. For digital radio, Eureka 147 digital radio audio broadcasts standard is most commonly used and is coordinated by the or DBM forum. A DAB uses MPAC1, audio layer 2, audio MP2 codec for audio broadcasting, while a personal players uses a MP3 codec. The main original objective of DAB were to provide a radio at CD quality, to provide a better in-car reception quality than using FM analog radio, to use a spectrum more efficiently, to allow tuning by the name of station rather than by frequency, and to allow data to be transmitted wirelessly. My earlier term was audio network, in which we have seen unicast and broadcast in more detail. Now we will be starting with a data network. In case of unicast and broadcast of audio network, we have seen the journey from circuit switched networks to the packet switched, but exclusively we discussed circuit switched technology in earlier case. Now, in case of data networks, we will be morely aligned to the packet switched networks. So, we'll start with the data networks. In the data networks, we'll start with the network protocol suite and aligned points. In the network protocol suites, network protocols generally defines a fixed length for pieces of data to be transmitted, called as data packet size. This makes it easier to store and forward data packets when sending and receiving, and to transmit data more reliably and efficiently. Data messages that exceed the fixed length of data packet size can be split into smaller related individual data packets. This is called as data segmentation. To send and receive the contents through data packets, additional control packets are used, such as synchronization and acknowledgement data packets. The types of the data and control packets are defined in the network communication protocol. Each data packet is labeled with address of an end receiver computer node. In particular network, this enables packet from multiple messages to be interleaved or multiplexed to use the same part of the network. Means it is clear from this description and the point which we already studied. In earlier case, a fixed line or fixed link between a source to the destination. In the data network, as such, no fixed line between the source and destination. It follows multiple paths. Each type of the physical network link protocol defines its own type of the data packets and multiplexing. Data packets defined by one protocol can be tunneled or encapsulated in other types of the data packet. This is often used to build a layer more functionality for more complex communication protocols on the top of another one and to hide the complexity of a lower level communication protocol from a higher level one. Hence, users and applications are not exposed to the intricacies of a lower level internet and to host or host to network protocols. So this is about protocol suite. Next one is about addressing mechanisms. Before communication can occur between the network elements such as computers, they need to be allocated network addresses. In computer networks, network addresses are allocated to the networks in a logical ranges called as subnets. To transfer messages across networks requires the use of a special network computer called as a router. Network addresses consist of two parts: network address and a host computer address, in which either IP version 4 or IP version 6 is used. IP version 4 supports 32-bit addressing mechanism, and this is insufficient for giving even one address to every living person, let alone supporting multiple embedded and portable devices per person. IP version 6, however, supports 128-bit addresses, and there are varying estimates to how many IP version 6 addresses are available per person depending on different address allocation schemes, but somewhere in the range of 10 raised to 24 to 10 raised to 28 addresses for each of the roughly 6.5 billion people alive today. However, the majority of addresses used today are still IP version 4. So this is a very simple schematic of how the packet follows a path, how the packet moves. Basically, on the left hand side at top shows a OSI model. So in this OSI model, different layers are there, that as already you know: physical layer, data link layer, network layer, transport layer, session layer, presentation layer and application layer. And TCP IP having different layers like Ethernet, host to host, network, transport and application. Whenever we think of packets, and again I am talking about packet switched networks, let's think of D1, D2, D3. These are the packets. When they originate from computer and to be transferred over the internet, it has to follow the path shown by a router. Means the packet goes to the router. From that router, that is connected to the external world. Means here The C1, C2, C3, C4, C5 are the small computer networks, and in that small computer networks there are different computers like a personal computers P1, P2, P3 up to PS, and that they're getting a data, they're getting a packets from their routers. Now, once we finish with a protocol suite, addressing mechanism in the data network, next point come into the picture in the data network, that's a routing and internetworking. Routing is a main issue or main aspect of data network. Multiple paths may be available between sender and receiver nodes located on different networks which may be interlinked to form a internet. Data may be too large to be transmitted in one go and may need to be split into multiple packets that can get transmitted along multiple routes or multiple routes are referred to as data routing. This is normally performed at the network level without applications. Routers examine the addresses of data packets to decide whether or not packets should be forwarded to the another particular network. The information to decide where to route the packets is defined in a routing table held in a routers. Routers communicate with each other using a specialized routing protocols that provides update to the routing table. One of the most common used routing algorithm is a open shortest path first algorithm. Each OSPF, a router broadcasts its routes and in turn requests information about routes that it can connect to. Generally, dynamic routing is aimed at fixed wired infrastructure network where senders and receivers are at fixed location and where the routing is kept hidden. Packets transmitted along multiple routes may arrive out of order or get lost sometime and need to be retransmitted and reassembled in order at the destination. As I told, there is no fixed path to transmit the packets from source to the destination. Means definitely it follows different paths, and as it follows different paths, so definitely there is no guarantee of receiving the packets with the what number they originates. Means there is a need to reassemble, to regather in a particular sequence to get a whole information. The data networks are commonly designed to use a type of simple and reliable packet switched data networks. IP data packets are mapped or encapsulated into a host to network layer data packets, a PSDN that is packet switched data network, is unreliable because data can get lost, or a related data packets can be received out of order compared to the transmission order. Hence, PSTN protocol is often used in conjunction with an additional transport layer protocol that provides reliable and sequenced data delivery to the destination. One example is the transmission control protocol, or in short we call it as a TCP, that operates between application and endpoints in the access network. Reliability is accomplished with a system of synchronization and acknowledgement control packets, timeouts and retries. When data loss occurs in the network, data transmission stalls while the protocol detects a loss and retransmits the missing data. Application can mask the effect of this by buffering a data, although this increases a message latency. TCP can also adjust the transmission rate to avoid overwhelming the receiver or the network in between. However, TCP requires extra resources. The use of three-way synchronization or handshake is used in order to set up a connection, and this takes time. Further, TCP can only be used to connect a single sender and receiver. If we wish to support multicast communication, we need to use a different transport protocol such as UDP, the user datagram protocol. Unlike the TCP, UDP is far simpler to implement. It can be used to, or it can be used for multicast. It does not need to synchronize itself at the start and end session, and it does not need a timeout or a retransmit or use any kind of a flow control or congestion control. So, we covered 2 points. The first one was the audio network, second one was data networks. Now, third point with which we will be starting is a wireless data networks. So, first of all, we will look at what are the different disadvantages of, what are the different advantages of wireless data networks, and then we will go into its details. The first one is, as it's wireless data network, so definitely the term anywhere come into picture. In contrast, a wired network which can only be accessed at a fixed number of network junctions, wireless networks gives users freedom to access them anywhere. Mobility. Wireless communication networks can be accessed while moving, and the cost of installing wireless transmitters and receivers typically is much cheaper than the wired networks. Less disruptive. Wireless networks can be used in the areas where wired networks would be considered too inconvenient, disruptive, or expensive to install. Next one is adaptivity. Wireless networks are considered more adaptive in terms of their ability to expand or shrink the coverage of network and to vary the density of coverage. Installing more transmitters and capacity in high populated in contrast to more rural areas. There are different kinds of the wireless networks. There are a wide variety of wireless networks available. Networks vary according to the type of infrastructure, the network range, frequencies used, type of signal modulation to increase the channel efficiency and channel sharing, the bandwidth available and power consumption. Basically, these are the different factors which will divide a wireless network into different types. Mobile wireless networks can vary in the range they cover. They can be global, example satellite. They can be wide area covering hundreds to thousands of kilometers, example mobile phone networks such as GSM, TDMA, CDMA, or might be local area and metropolitan networks covering 100 meters to 5 kilometers, example wireless LAN, or personal networks covering 1 meter to 10 meter, example Bluetooth or Zigbee or infrared. The range of potential access depends upon the frequency of transmission, the strength of transmission, and on the factors such as attenuation of the signal. For example, by moisture and water and different kinds of the solid objects. There is also a relationship between the frequency and maximum data ranges that can be transmitted. Generally, the higher the frequency, the greater the data transmission rate, but the greater the attenuation. A spatial efficiency, that is called as sometimes that is called as SE, in bits per second per unit area is considered a useful metric to describe the data rates that are available within the local area. In addition, as a power consumption in a particular constraint for mobile wireless transceivers, a power efficiency metric bits per second per watt may be useful. These are some of the examples of wireless network: wireless LAN or WiMAX, a Bluetooth, Zigbee, infrared, UWB, that is ultra wideband, satellite, and microwave communication. Now, after the wireless data network, next and fourth point with which we will be starting is a ubiquitous network. This ubiquitous network might be a wireless network. So, in this wireless networks, many wireless networks use transmitters that have limited range. Adjacent wireless networks and transmitters that support the same services can use a different frequency, code, or time division based multiplexing to prevent different sources at the same frequency from interfering with each other. This means that users who roam between adjacent transmitters need to use receivers that are designed to transparently switch frequencies as one signal fades and another one becomes stronger. Often frequencies may be allocated to service providers at a regional level. So, it may not be possible for a provider to use same transmission frequency in multiple regions. This makes the switch over from one wireless network to the another less transparent. Power consumptions. Power consumption must be considered because we are talking about a ubiquitous system. Wireless terminals may be able to used anywhere where the wireless transmissions can be sent and received. But if a mobile wireless terminal runs out of power, it cannot send or receive. It must be plugged into a power outlet if available for later use. Depending on whether transmitters are active or need to be pulled, access can be designed such that transmitter pull for any receiver in the range or vice versa. This enables local services to be automatically accessed only when receivers are in the range. The next one that is to be taken into the consideration in case of ubiquitous network, that is a power line communication. In short, it is called as PLC. Power line communication is an alternative way to ubiquitously access the data and audio video contents. Wherever there is an electricity power line connection, the same network that conducts electricity to deliver the energy can modulate electricity as a signal and be used as a channel to communicate data and audio video contents. Means existing electrical lines to be used to transmit the data, and the data is of a kind audio, video, or simply a text data. Powerline communication describes a range of systems for using electricity distribution, wires to be simultaneous distribution of data. The carrier can communicate voice and data by superimposing a modulating signal over a standard 50 or 60 Hz alternating current. This can be used in a home automation for remote control of lighting and appliances without installation of additional control wiring, example extend and home plug kind of the systems. Next one is a personal area network. Wireless personal area network WPAN have been specified by the IEEE P802.15 working group. Personal area network PAN is normally confined to a person or an object that typically extend up to 10 meters in all directions and envelopes two or more objects or persons, whether stationary or in motion. The WLAN standard, that is what wireless LAN standard, was initially considered for extension but was dropped because it's a higher power requirement and it's a higher network management overhead. Bluetooth, Zigbee and IR are the examples of the systems that can be used to implement a PAN. Typically, or typical applications includes multi-network phone depending on network access, mobile internet access on the move, interactive local conferencing to instantly exchange information, etc. Next one is a body area network. Earlier was personal area network, now this is body area network. A body area network or a BAN consists of set of mobiles and compact intercommunicating sensors that are either variable, means variable to the human body, or implanted into a human body. A typical BAN application can monitor a vital body parameters and movements and either store them in some devices on the body for later upload and analysis, or periodically transmit data in a real time via some external network interfaces. Geislings describes the use of systems for the simultaneous acquisition of EEG, electrical brain activity, ECG, electrical cardiac activity, and EMG, electrical muscle activity signals that are transmission signals and transmission of these signals wirelessly to base station. Geislings contend that both Bluetooth and Zigbee cannot meet the combined wireless band power and data requirements. Typical chips for these radios consumes in order of 10 to 100 microwave for a data rates of 100 to 1000 kbps, leading to a power efficiency of roughly 100 to 1000 microwatt per Mbps or Newton joule per beat. A BAN is often referred to as more personal, specific subset of a PAN, which uses body as electrical conduct between the devices. PANs can extend the scope of the network into a meter-sized personal space and even to the larger social spaces. Because of the nature of electromagnetism, where the electric signals can cause both capacitive and inductive fields and moving magnetic fields that can cause electrical currents, electrical conduction through the body can cause inductive and capacitive fields to protrude outside the body. Near field communication can also operate at much lower frequencies like 0.1 to 1 megahertz than the far fields which can be generated directly from inexpensive microcontrollers. The design issues in using the near field versus the far field effects for physical media communication in the PAN is also a design issue for passive RFID tags attached to the physical objects. A next point is a network design issues. The network design issues, let's first start with a network access control. Different network uses a range of access control techniques to handle network resource allocation problems and to allow multiple users to access the network media that has a limited capacity. GSM is designed to use the TDMA, that is time division multiplexing, to share the access among the multiple users. In TDMA, several users can split the transmission time into a slot per channel. Parallel to that, the next one is a code division multiple access, that is what a CDMA is used. Many US mobile carriers in our India, earlier technology used by Reliance was CDMA mobile carriers, in which the voice signals are spread across a band of frequencies or channels using a spread spectrum. Later generation of the wireless networks such as 3G are designed to use much more efficient multi-access methods such as wideband code division multiplexing, multiple access that can support higher bandwidth. WLANs are typically based on sharing frequencies between several active users. Because many simultaneous users may cause a packet collision, and hence a waste channel bandwidth, and because of it can be difficult to detect some nodes, that is hidden nodes. It is important that the packet collision be avoided. Hence, WLAN typically uses a multiple access with a collision avoidance, that is called as MACA type of the transmission protocol. Here, a wireless network node makes an announcement by sending a control packet, a request to send, that is RTS, with a length of data frame to send before the packet is sent. This is sent before a sender sends any actual packet and informs other nodes to keep silent. If the receiver allows a transmission, it replies to the sender in a signal called a clear to send CTS. Means before sending the actual packets, it sends a request to send RTS kind of the packets. And if it receives the reply with a CTS, that is called as clear to send, with a length of same frame that is about to receive, any other node hearing a RTS signal refrain from sending until they hear a CTS signal. A token based system are used to control the access to the local networks using special control messages. Tokens which continuously circulate through a system, example structured as a token ring topology. A network token can be set to the states in which it indicates. A network node which wishes to use a network to transmit the data must wait to receive a token in the free state. It can then change the token to a busy sending a state and then start to transmit its data. This data circulates with a busy token signaling to all other network attached nodes that they must wait to transmit. When the data reaches to the receiver, it changes the token status to indicate that a busy received state. The token then circulates back to the sender, which sees the busy receiver state as acknowledgement and that the data has been received and releases the token for others to access the network. The protocol is that the network nodes which have the token and are busy must release it within a time limit. A network nodes can be designed to be an active monitor or a standby monitor to manage a creation of tokens and to deal with lost tokens. Next one is a ubiquitous versus localized access. Networks may also be designed to support only local access by organizations, to serve only particular populations, or users and applications are not to be accessed remotely across the wide area network. The driver for this is the need to tailor services for local needs. Some services that only serve a local area, example local restaurants that only serve customers that visits it, may advertise only to the local customers. The restaurant may decide to advertise and broadcast to any user in the vicinity as they have a surplus or food that will not give for the users who need to travel more longer distances. Services can be restricted to the local access because they are only available on a wired local networks that are situated in buildings. Because they are offered on wireless local area network and because they need to be kept internal by the organization. Local services can also be designed to have access control to enable them to be accessed remotely and securely by a closed group of users operating as a virtual private network. Sometimes we call it as VPN. Controlling network access, that's firewalls, NATs and VPNs. A firewall is a router or special purpose computer that monitors all packets entering and leaving the network and filters the packets based upon network address, thus restricting access to the packets with a designated network address. Firewall can be designed according to which the level of network they work, the packet level and application level firewalls. The packet level firewalls examine and filter the data packets according to the IP or a transport layer address. This type of the firewall can be susceptible to the packet addresses spoofing, in which a malicious processes try to replace real IP addresses that lack a network access with other IP addresses that have a better network access. Application layer firewalls requires users to log on into the firewall computer before they can access any other network element. Next point in the same is a network address translation, that is called as a NAT. Is a computer that acts as a proxy to translate the IP address inside the network, keeping them private to the other IP addresses that are visible outside the network. Firewalls may also be designed to support multiple level of the network interfaces called as multi-homed host rather than using the same network interface for external connections and internal connections. Some organizations use a multiple levels of different types and a combination of firewalls, NAT and a multi-homed host computers to protect a key network resources. Because of the growing number of the IP devices in residential buildings, the need for strong security such as firewalls to prevent unauthorized access to control is becoming a necessity for home uses. Next vision is a group communication, that's for transmission of multiple receivers. Sending the same message from a single source to a defined group of multiple receivers. Multicast communication or a group communication can be used in order to provide some fault tolerance for the contents or in order to share the information with a group. To avoid the overhead in managing a large groups can be split into the hierarchies that can cascade group transmissions to the lower members. Group members may or may not be visible to the members depending upon the design. In unreliable multicast, messages are transmitted to all the members without acknowledgement. In a reliable multicast, the message transmission makes the best effort to deliver all the receivers in the group. It may be delivered to some but not all the nodes. In atomic multicast, a message is either received by all the receivers or none of them. Messages can be tagged with a sequenced identifier to indicate ordering. Now, next one is a service oriented networks. This is the next point. Typically, traditionally different applications or different application services were coupled to specific networks because different applications need different levels of support for data transmission functions such as latency, sequencing, performance and reliability, channel sharing, data control and security. It is simpler to design a network to support one specific set of the applications requirements rather than to support multiple applications that have different messaging requirements, because these may a conflict. However, this has the disadvantage that more complex multi-service networks need to be provided and maintained, and it is harder to integrate data from applications that exist on different networks. These days, services are oriented to be coupled less to specific networks and to be available across heterogeneous networks architectures were network oriented. Let us look at this figure, where the first half of the figure, upper part, that is the part above the dotted line, represents a network oriented nature, users and services oriented to the network, and the second one is a service oriented network. Network has different services and have a different subscribers, and service oriented architecture, users have different services and have different networks. That is a significant difference between these two. Now, in the same point, sub point is service orientation at the network edge. A simple abstraction of a network topology to support universality is to partition communication network into two parts: an access network or a edge network and a core network, and to design these networks to appear as a universal. First one is an access network. Access network, as the name implies, is the network that users and applications use to access the network. The core network comprises the interlinked networks that then link to access networks. Widespread adoption of IP in the core network has given the internet a nearly universal interoperability that allows all end users to access the internet applications and content on non-discriminatory basis. A network neutrality vision for the communication and content delivery world in which every end user can obtain access to every available application and a piece of information is quite compelling. Network homogeneity can reduce the utility of the network both by reducing diversity and by biasing the market against a certain type of the applications. Changes to the core network and standardization can take some considerable time to reach fruition. It can have the preserve effect of reinforcing the sources of market failure used and justifying regulatory intervention in the first place. It can further enrich monopoly power by damping incentives to invest in alternative network neutrality. The core network should support multiple core networks functions, not just those biased towards to the individual packet switched data type transmission. Content based networks. A content based network is a communication infrastructure in which the flow of messages through the network is driven by contents of the messages rather than by linking a specific sender to the specific receiver. With this communication pattern, receivers subscribe to the types of contents that are of interest to them without regard to any specific source. Senders simply publish information without addressing it to any specific destination. Conventional solutions to this includes first allocating bands of addresses to each type of the contents and interest, and then to multicast contents to this band of addresses rather than specific receivers. A second approach is to use a content based publish or subscribe middleware services. Example, an application level in information broker that supports rich information selection capabilities. However, both of these would not scale up to support many different kinds of contents and interests combined with high performance. In the content based network, nodes are not assigned a unique network address. Data is not addressed to any specific node or node group. Instead, each node advertises a receiver predicate that defines data of interest for that node that the node intends to receive. Nodes can also send out datagrams which the network will forward to all the nodes with a matching or predicates. Similar to a traditional network, the semantics of contents based addressing scheme is realized by forwarding and routing functions in a router. A router computes its output based on datagram contents and its internal forwarding table that is maintained by gathering, combining and exchanging predicates and other routing information with adjacent nodes. Programmable networks. Typically, service providers do not have access to the router. This makes the development of network services, which could be far more flexible than proprietary control system, impossible due to the closed nature of network nodes. Programmable networks allows some of the network elements to be reprogrammed dynamically, perhaps by injecting executable codes that could support application specific services into network elements such as routers and switches. The downside to this is that the complexity increases and there is an increasing risk of instability and for malicious code to take control of a core network elements. The main difference between the two is that the opening approach seeks to establish open programmable network interface, whereas the AN approach is to support injecting executable code into a network elements to reprogram them. An example of the open network APIs is a Parley OSA initiative provide a good survey of AN research. Overlay networks in the network oriented design. An overlay network is a virtual network built on the top of physical network that provides an infrastructure to one or more applications. It handles the forwarding and handling of application data in the way that are different from or in competition with the basic underlying physical network such as internet or PSTN. It can be operated in an organized or coherent way by third party, which may include a collection of end users. Many standard applications such as email, voice over internet IP, web search engines, etc. can benefit from providing services in a special intermediate service nodes in which which can for example a cache information. Overlay networks have the major benefit in that new communication services that can be introduced which might otherwise require modifying the current internet. Another issue is that different applications may need different levels of reliability, performance and latency that and security and access control. The nodes in the overlay network are connected by a virtual or logical links. Application specific overlay networks can be incrementally deployed on end hosts running on overlay protocol, example based upon distributed hash table with a modified virtual nodes. Routing without requiring changes to the physical routers. One of the earliest type of the overlay networks that was used by a telcos, that is our telecom industries, to offer non-geographical phone numbers services such as free phone numbers, local rate phones and premium phone rates number rates, which are charged at same rate no matter where they are dialed from. Next one is a mesh network in the network oriented design. In a full mesh network topology, every network node is connected using a point-to-point connection to every other one, but connecting every node to every other node is costly to wire and costly power wise to transmit to each other. Hence, in practice, mesh networks are usually partial mesh networks in which each node is not connected to every other node. Partial mesh networks tends to combine ring and star based network topologies. Wireless mesh networks are a partial mesh ad hoc networks that can significantly improve the performance at the lower cost and at the lower power output compared to other types of the wireless LAN, such as wireless local area networks, wireless personal area networks, and wireless metropolitan area networks. WNM may be suitable solution in the rural areas where conventional base station wireless types of the network supports or DSL supports may be patchy. However, each WMN receiver is now more complex and more costly as it must also act as a relay. Instead of using a sophisticated and costly centralized base stations, each wireless receiver in the WMN can act as a relay point or a node for other receivers within a range, enabling a data signal to pass through several nodes as it progresses from the core network to its destination. To this end, and the WMN act as a kind of cooperative network for its users. WMN can also be used to support interoperability between a heterogeneous wireless networks to improve their performance and to avoid the dead zones that can occur in some types of the wireless networks. So, this is the typical example of mesh network, wireless mesh networks and overlay networks, in which a fully connected, that is what full mesh, partial mesh is also shown over here. Multiple types of the network are okay. There are few characteristics associated with the WMN. Multi of wireless networks extends coverage range without sacrificing the channel capacity, without direct line of the site link. Ad hoc networks supports self-forming, self-healing and self-organization for multi-point to multi-point communication, enabling the network to grow gradually as needed. Mobility dependence on the type of the mesh nodes. Mesh routers usually have minimal mobility, while the mesh clients can be stationary or a mobile nodes. Multiple types of the networks access, both backhaul access to the internet and peer-to-peer communication are supported. Mesh routers usually do not have a strict power consumption constraints and may not be appropriate for some type of the mesh clients, those that act as the sensors in the sensor network where the power consumption is primary concern. WMN are compatible and can be integrated with a multiple IEEE 802.11 Wi-Fi types of the networks. WMN aims to diversify the capabilities of ad hoc networks. Next one is the cooperative networks, and probably the last point of network oriented design. Cooperative communication is designed to enable a single antenna, mobile access devices to reap some of the benefits of being multiple input, multiple output systems. A specific problem that cooperative communication can solve at the physical media layer concerns a signal fading because a thermal noise shadowing due to the fixed obstacles and due to the signal attenuation can vary significantly over the course of a given transmission. Transmitting independent copies of a signal that will fade or that will face independent fading generates a diversity and can effectively combat the deleterious effects of fading through combining these multiple signals. Cooperative communication can be used to generate this diversity. In essence, a cooperative communication treats communication nodes as they are a part of WMN, but a multicast the same messages over the multiple routes with a different fading effects to the same receiver. The other benefits apart from improving the recovery of the signal in the face of fading is that the power consumptions can be reduced for a transmission even when it ought to increase as a multiple users are now using each transmitter. Overall, less power can then be used to cover for fading. So, this is the end of the session, and the contents which I have taken from this book, Stephen Postler, Ubiquitous Computing, Smart Devices, Environments and Interaction. Thank you for listening the session.